In the silence of northwestern Arabia, the desert does not speak like cities. It does not speak with towers, crowds, or written monuments placed neatly in museums. It speaks through wind, stone, distance, and memory. Among its cliffs and valleys, one name has survived through centuries: Thamud. A people remembered for strength, carved mountains, pride, warning, and disappearance. Their story begins not with noise, but with silence. Thamud is not only a name from the past, it is a name preserved in sacred memory, Arab tradition, and desert geography. For many, it is known through the Quran and the story of Prophet Saleh. For others, it is connected with Al-Hijr, Agra, ancient inscriptions and ruins. But to understand Thamud, we must listen carefully to memory and evidence, without forcing them to say the same thing. The story of Thamud stands between three worlds. The first is the world of revelation, where Salih calls his people to worship God alone. The second is the world of Arab memory, where Thamud belongs to the ancient peoples of Arabia. The third is the world of archaeology, where stones, tombs, wells, and inscriptions must be studied carefully. A professional documentary must not confuse these layers. It must allow each one to speak in its own language. The Quran describes the people of Al-Hijr as carving homes from mountains while feeling secure. This image is powerful because stone suggests permanence. To carve into the mountain is to challenge the desert itself. It says, "We will remain here, we will shape this land, we will make the hardest thing around us into shelter." But stone can also create illusion. A people surrounded by stone may begin to believe they are as permanent as stone. A society that masters its environment may forget that power is not the same as safety. Thamud's story turns on this tension: achievement on the outside, arrogance on the inside. They built, they carved, they felt secure. But the warning came to remind them that no wall can protect a society from moral collapse. This is why Thamud still matters. Their story is not only about an ancient people, it is about every civilization that builds with confidence and forgets humility. The mountains they carved outlived them, but their memory became a warning. Before we enter the events of Salih and the she-camel, we must first understand the world that shaped them. Before modern roads crossed Arabia, the desert was not empty. It was alive with movement. Caravans crossed valleys. Herders followed seasonal routes. Travelers knew the wells, the stars, and the mountains. To outsiders, the desert may look like emptiness, but to those who lived within it, it was a map of survival. In such a world, carving into mountains was more than construction, it was an act of confidence. The mountain gave shade, protection, and presence. Stone resisted heat, wind, and time. For a people like Thamud, the mountain was not only landscape, it became identity. Arabia was also connected. Caravans carried more than goods. They carried stories, beliefs, names, warnings, and memories. The desert routes linked oases, tribes, and distant markets. Even in harsh landscapes, people were part of wider worlds. Narration: the rocks of Arabia preserve many traces. Some are drawings of animals, some are marks of travelers, some are inscriptions studied by specialists today. But the past must be read carefully. A mark on stone is evidence, but it must not be forced into a story before it is understood. This was the world around the memory of Thamud. Roots, wells, cliffs, carved spaces, and desert knowledge. But the Quranic story does not remember them only for skill. It remembers them for a test. A messenger came to them from among themselves, and with that messenger came a sign that would reveal what was hidden inside their society. In the Quranic account, Thamud receives a messenger from among themselves, Salih. He does not come as a stranger to the land. He speaks to his own people in a language they understand, about a truth they cannot dismiss as foreign. His message is clear: worship God alone, abandon corruption, and remember the one who gave them their strength. The resistance does not begin because the message is impossible to understand. It begins because accepting it would require humility. The leaders fear losing influence. The proud fear becoming equal with the weak. The comfortable fear a truth that demands change. The resistance does not begin because the message is impossible to understand. It begins because accepting it would require humility. The leaders fear losing influence. The proud fear becoming equal with the weak. The comfortable fear a truth that demands change. But arrogance rarely falls in one moment. It builds excuses. It says the command is inconvenient. It says the warning is exaggerated. It says the sign must be removed so life can return to normal. But arrogance rarely falls in one moment. It builds excuses. It says the command is inconvenient. It says the warning is exaggerated. It says the sign must be removed so life can return to normal. The boundary is crossed. The sign is violated. The she-camel is harmed, and the people's rebellion becomes visible. What was hidden in pride becomes action. After this, the warning is no longer distant. It becomes immediate. The Quranic story describes the end with sudden force. A people who felt secure in mountains are overtaken. Their shelters cannot protect them. Their stone cannot answer for them. The places that once echoed with life become witnesses to silence. After destruction, silence remains. This silence is not empty. It speaks with the weight of warning. The stone remains, but the people are gone. And the viewer is left with a question. What is the value of strength when it loses obedience? When we move from scripture to archaeology, the landscape becomes more complex. Al-Hijr, also known as Hegra or Mada-in Salih, is a real ancient site. Its cliffs, tombs, wells, and carved facades are breathtaking. But the most famous visible monuments at Hegra are mainly Nabatean tombs from a later historical period. This must be said clearly and professionally. This does not weaken the story. It makes the place richer. One landscape can carry religious memory, archaeological evidence, and centuries of interpretation. A stone monument can belong to one historical period and still become part of the memory of another. The desert is layered, and every layer must be treated with care. Water was central to life in this region. The wells and water systems of Hegra remind us that ancient people did not merely survive the desert by chance. They studied it, managed it, and engineered ways to live within it. The desert was harsh, but it was not impossible. Knowledge turned danger into settlement. Across ancient Arabia, inscriptions and rock art preserve traces of human presence. Some marks belong to known scripts. Others are difficult to classify. Older scholars use the term Thamudic broadly, but modern scholarship is more careful. A name carved in stone is valuable evidence, but it must not be simplified into certainty. Egra also belonged to a world of trade. Caravans moved through these landscapes carrying goods and ideas. The Nabatean presence reminds us that northwestern Arabia was connected to wider networks. It was not an isolated emptiness. It was a crossroads of movement, economy, belief, and memory. Scripture and archaeology ask different questions. Scripture asks why people reject truth after warning comes to them. Archaeology asks how people lived, built, traded, buried, wrote, and moved. When we confuse these questions, we weaken both. But when we respect them, the story becomes deeper. The tragedy of Thamud was not that they built. Building is not condemned. Skill is not condemned. Strength is not condemned. What is condemned is arrogance, achievement without gratitude, strength without humility, and power without obedience. At the end of the journey, the name remains, Thamud, a people of stone, strength, warning, and memory. The mountains they carved outlived them, but the warning outlived the mountains. And the final question remains for every generation. When we build our own world, will we build it with humility